The Delaware County Historical Society presents Delaware County Restaurants and Ice Cream Parlors. On January 19, 2017, the Delaware County Historical Society put on a program to discuss the history of Delaware's restaurants and ice cream parlors. What follows is a research presentation as well as eyewitness accounts from people who worked and visited these historical places.
Everybody goes to Midway. You know, some of the best ads were in Ohio Wesleyan yearbooks. They took a lot of great pictures for ads, and so there is one of that. And I noticed in the wall, it had a jukebox right there at one of the tables. So, how many restaurants had jukeboxes? Well, we'll leave that for your figuring later. BUN'S Restaurant's the oldest restaurant continually operating in this county. And so it's the oldest restaurant. Bun was the nickname of the owner. What was the nickname of Bun's son? Biscuit, right. Is that right, Crumb? Where are you? Come on down. You're our first contestant up here tonight. I'm sorry?
Have you ever been shy on work?
She's going to, during my commercial break, she's going to come in. We'll take a commercial break in a little bit. Where is Mike? Come on up, Mike. Our next, there's a picture of Bun's Restaurant. The old restaurant. Yeah. So, what can you tell us about this?
I can tell you there was a jukebox. I can tell you that Bun and Roy bought Rips, and they also owned Midway.
They had Midway and Rips. Anybody remember Rips? Yeah. We're coming back to that. Yes. Yes. And when did Bun's begin? Any idea?
Well, great-grandfather after the Civil War, if I've got the greats right, moved to Annette Street and East Winter Street and opened a bakery. And then his son moved across the street to 10 West Winter Street. And so they had two bakeries going. And then the George on the east side of town got blind. So they closed that place down and brought that grandfather to this side of the river. And then they opened a commercial bakery. And then somebody was making a ham salad, and they brought it down and started making sandwiches, and they put tables and chairs in on a soda fountain.
Can't hear you very good.
Can't hear you very good. Okay, you're going to have to eat this microphone right there so they can hear you.
Where was I?
The sandwiches that they were
So somebody started making sandwiches, and then they put tables and chairs in, and there was no, Wesleyan had no community building for their students, so they all congregated at the store. And then Bun started putting photographs of the famous Wesleyan athletes up, and they had all the fraternity and sorority paddles, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. And someplace in the, I think Mr. Pierce died in the early 60s, so they bought that because the original owner, Rip, was a Sigma Chi, and so were Bun and Roy.
Okay.
And so there was a time there, and why they owned Midway, I don't know. I just talked to Dad on the way down here, and I'd forgotten. But he told me that he remembers in the 10th grade, he worked at the Midway, and he'd take a bakery tray and leave and go over to Sty Hill, and the girls would come out in their pajamas. He was early on chasing Wesleyan codes, and finally caught one. So I've been transcribing Delaware history and Hoffman history for three years now in the winter when I don't have any work, and I'm going to announce it at some point in time. But Bun took a trip in 1947. He had never taken a vacation from the teens when he started the restaurant. And in 47, he bought an Airstream trailer look-alike and put Ohio Wesleyan on one side and Bun's on the other side, and announced to the Little Brown Jones a $50,000 purse, and what is it now, $300,000 or $400,000. Had a Kiwanis symbol on it, and they took off and left Delaware and the first day they made it to Marysville. And they stayed 3 days and got stuck in the guy that owned Scott Seed at the time. They got stuck in his front yard. And so they ended up, they traveled all the states that connected with Canada, and then went down the Pacific coast, and we're going to come back along Mexico through Florida. And in January, I was born, so they cut the trip short and came home. Is that good enough?
You've done fine, and I look at this picture in the background. What about the BUN'S sign? How far does that go back, the one that's over the street?
Well, that was put up in the early teens by the merchants on the street because they felt they were being slighted because all the businesses that were getting activity were, Sandusky Street. So they put that arch up and it had lights on it, sort of like what the Short North's got now. And it fell into disrepair, so the story is that my grandfather went to city council with a box of cigars, and they gave him the arch if he kept it maintained. That's what I know about the arch.
And the other story, Mike, I remember about hearing about, I suppose it was BUN, that there was a time in history when co-eds could go to the restaurant, but they could not sit in the same booth or at the same table. That they had to be separated. They were allowed to come there, and it was quite the gathering place for co-eds from Westland. But was it BUN that had the shrill whistle?
Yeah.
He had the shrill whistle that he would warn them by the shrill whistle that the Dean of Women was about to arrive. And the whole place would separate. Thank you, Mike.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. Pearl Plunkett's restaurant, or Pearl Plunkett's place, served food and was known for her pies. She was known for her pies. They also sold gas. Or the truck stop. Anybody know where Pearl Plunkett's was? Pearl Plunkett's was on the corner of Section Line Road and 42. And that building that's there now is a different building than was the one that Plunkett's had.
Which corner?
It was on the same corner that the one is there now, on the southeast corner of the intersection there. Yes. What was the original name of the corner cafe located just past the point out there?
Zyder Z.
The Zyder Z, yeah. The Zyder Z. How many Subway restaurants are in the city of Delaware today?
Too many.
Too many. 6. There are 6. And that counts the ones that are inside the stores. Right, yes. Yes. Delaware County's first pizza restaurant. Well, you're on the right track. It's not Marino's. The original name, Rick Ray, do you remember this? Because you told me the answer way back. Turcola Pizza.
What was it?
Turcola Pizza. And it was in the little building that's right beside where Donato's is now. And that then became Marino's Pizza. In fact, our next slide here, I think. Am I off on the slide here? Oh. Oh, we have Pizzavilla, that's right. First Turcola, then Pizzavilla, and then Pizzavilla moved from the little shack to the building where Donato's is today. And do we have anybody here who ever worked at Pizzavilla? Come on down. Yes, they hired more teenagers. And remember all the pictures up on the walls?
I still have my apron.
You still have your apron?
I do. I was one of the last people that worked there.
You were one of the.
I was one of the last waitresses that worked there.
And what is your name? What was your name then?
Carrie Ward.
Okay. And so how long did you work there?
6 years.
6 years, wow.
Yeah,
You got to know Freddie?
absolutely.
Freddie DiPietro. Freddie DiPietro in the picture there back behind.
Where's Richie?
Well, this, we couldn't find one yet. And there again, here's our search. We need pictures. We don't have a picture of the old Pizza Villa shack either. And I've seen it. But we need to get that.
Tony would have that.
Well, we are hoping that Tony can get that for us. But yes.
A Hayes High School yearbook or a Western yearbook will have it.
Okay, okay. And this picture here is out of a Hayes High School yearbook.
1975.
1975. Is that right?
I'm positive.
Connie, how long did you work there?
Not this one, the other one.
On and off 3 years.
Okay.
1975.
This isn't the last time you're going to be up here, I know. But because you worked around different places, didn't you? Well, I'm glad you did. Thank you all for coming. At this place, you could buy gas, buy a few groceries, eat a meal, and get a haircut. All at the same spot. This is out in the county. Anybody know where I'm talking? I heard it.
Lewis Center.
Not Lewis Center, Dennis Point. You cross the Scioto River, heading out on US Route 37, and the building is still there on the corner of 37 and Houseman Road. Right. This restaurant person sported a Western-style dress and a handlebar mustache.
Stubby Bowen.
Stubby Bowen. You know, it's the wrong time of the year for some of these people because they're all in Florida right now. So, otherwise, I'm sure we would have him here. I don't think we have an employee of that restaurant. The restaurant was? The Branding Iron, right. Now, before it was the Branding Iron, it was the Farmhouse Restaurant. We have an employee here from the Farmhouse Restaurant. How are ya? Carolyn, I'm talking to you. So how old were you? About 45 or 50 when you worked there?
High school.
You were in high school. 15 at the time, okay. Who was the owner? Hal Smith, Farmhouse Restaurant. Same building? Same building, although I think you said maybe that they added on the one end of it a little bit. Yes, the spur there. Right down the road here, and it's today
Blend of Seven.
Blend of Seven Wineries, right down here, yes. So, any memories of it?
Oh, I remember all the high school kids coming in after ball games and before ball games. And they just get together in the booths and had a little box on the jukebox.
You said in the booths or in the booths? Booths, okay, yeah, okay, yes, yes.
And just met a lot of people from all over the county. The kids get together from all over and had a good time.
Great.
Mostly all high school kids when I worked there, but during the day there were a lot of business people that came to the counter. And my mother worked there too at one time.
Okay.
I didn't work long hours, but it was a good time.
Great. Thank you, Carolyn. I knew there were plenty of pictures around of the Branding Iron, and it's sad that the only one we could find is at the auction that they were selling. And so, okay, moving on. How many stools are in the Sunbury Grill? On the square in Sunbury.
7.
Any other guess?
8.
You're getting closer.
9.
I think it's 10. Do we have a man here by the name of Larry Lambert? Is Larry Lambert here this evening? Larry I went over there to the Sunbury Grill, and there's a little plaque. He was going to try to make it tonight. A little plaque on the back wall that said he's been going there since 1947. And I mean, he goes there virtually every day to the Sunbury Grill. And so I did track him down, and he wasn't able to make it then tonight, but he was hoping to get here for this. But how many restaurants are in the village of Sunbury today? Any guesses?
17.
Gosh, you're real close. I'm saying 18 is what I
I
counted.
think you counted too many.
Maybe. The first fast food restaurant in the city of Delaware.
Burger Chef.
There it is. Yeah, there it is, yes. And we have an employee from Burger Chef. At least one thing, I think we have two that I know of here. Come up here, employees of Burger Chef. Denny, didn't you work at Burger Chef for a while? Denny Kelly?
My brothers did.
Oh, your brothers did, okay. Donna. What do you remember about Burger Chef? You don't even tell me what the cost, what the prices were way back there.
When it first opened, that's before I worked there, obviously, French fries were 12 cents, hamburgers were 15 cents, and milkshakes were 15 cents. You could get a good meal for 50 cents at Burger Chef. It was a great place to work when you were in high school because the kids used to drive up and down Sandusky Street all night long, and they drive around by A&W and Frisch's and then come back down around Pizza Villa and Burger Chef. So if you just hung around, everybody came in, so you could pretty much see everybody. So it was not quite that bad working on a Friday night.
That was early 1940s? Well, early 70s. And
Late 60s, early 70s.
yes. Now that restaurant is located where KFC is on South Sandusky Street today. Is the building the same? Did they make use of that building, or did they tear down? It was torn down. Okay. Where was Deerlick Dairy in the city of Delaware? On West William Street. Yes. How far down? On the second block.
If you count the alley, it was the second.
Okay, right.
That's where the paint store is now.
Right, well, it's right by the paint store, because the paint store was a grocery store at one
You're
point.
right. JD.
Yes, it's right where the little drive-in bank is. But I think we have an employee or two of Deerling. I'm not sure if Marilyn Murfield was able to make it tonight. But Carolyn, you're up again. Stop up there and tell us about Deerling, too.
Not a whole lot I remember, but it's even earlier than I worked at the farm. It was, I think the person I worked for was Bob Bell.
Bob Bell was the person she said she worked for.
And I made milkshakes, and people would come in for lunch, and dipped ice cream, of course. And that's about all I remember about it. But it was before I went to the farmhouse, so it was probably 1948.
1948. Wow. Wow.
But it was a real nice, clean place. It had windows along the front. This is up here.
There we have it, in the inside of it.
And just sold sandwiches and ice cream, things like that.
Okay. Thank you. Any other memory of that? Yes.
She said Bob Bill, did he have the dairy farm up in Leonardsburg?
Yes, he did. The farm at Leonardsburg. Yes. 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 Did you have a memory of?
Yes, I spent quite a few evenings over a couple of years so that I could take a certain young lady home afterwards. She closed at Derelict in 49, 50, and 51. And before we got married and after we got married.
Wow.
And Bob Bell was the owner.
And Bob Bell was the owner?
Yes, yes, he was.
Well, it was quite a place. I remember last summer talking with a guy by the name of Henry Banks in the community, and he said that was the spot for ball games or for lunchtime, getting out, he said, and going over to Deerlick Dairy there on West William Street.
Brent?
Yes.
They also had a lot of people, especially on weekends, that would come from Columbus to get their ice cream, because nobody in Columbus had as good of ice cream cones as Deerlick Dairy had then.
How much were they?
How much was a milkshake or an ice cream cone?
I think milkshakes were a quarter, but I'm not real sure. It's been so long. Yeah, it was, and another interesting story, as I say, she would do the closing, you know, and she would turn on half of the lights, and then the frat boys over at where the Andrews house is now,
Yes.
they would come in there en masse and order milkshakes. And wait till closing time, 10 o'clock, okay?
Wow.
And then when they would watch, and they'd come rolling in. And Bob Bell always said, if anybody comes in, regardless of when, you gotta serve them.
Wow.
That was his philosophy.
Wow. And so they came from Columbus a lot up there.
Yes, yes, they did.
Okay. Okay, moving on down to the Wayside and Lighthouse restaurants are, yeah, do you have a memory or?
Yeah, I wanted to add, in the 50s, a single dip of ice cream was a nickel, and you got 2 dips for a dime.
Wow. A nickel and 2 dips for a dime in the 1950s, he said. Wow. That Wayside and Lighthouse were both truck stops. Where were they located? Okay, way back there, yeah.
East town, about 6-7 miles, on the right-hand side.
Now, which one of those was that one? The Lighthouse, yes. The Lighthouse was over there at the freeway. I mean, close to the freeway there now. It's at 71. That was where the Lighthouse was located.
Hangover Tavern.
I'm sorry?
They call it the Hangover Tavern.
The Hangover Tavern. Was it open all night? Open all night, 24 hours. Wow. The Wayside. What about the Wayside truck stop in Delaware County?
23.
On 23 North. Yes. Yes. And where? At Hills Miller Road there. Yes. Yes, at the corner of Hills Miller. Was it open all night?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I had biscuits and gravy at 3 a.m. once.
Biscuits and gravy at 3 a.m. My gosh. Today it is a business called Seraph's, located on the corner of North Old State Road. Oh, okay, you got it already. North Old State Road and State Route 37 on your way towards Sunbury. When you get just before the Allen Creek, if you're not familiar, Seraph's is a business there today, but it was called Shades. We have a shade here tonight. Mike, come up here. What do you know, Mike?
Not much. And particularly not about the restaurant because I was in the service.
You were in service at that time. Now your brother worked there.
Tom and Dave both worked there.
Okay.
And it was let me see, Dad opened it, I think sometime, Tommy said in '68.
Okay.
But Dad had opened a restaurant back in 1957. Our mother died. And Dad, they were redoing the street down in Columbus where his restaurant was on East 5th Avenue. And Dad reopened the restaurant at the Delaware Hotel. And he ran it there for about 2.5 years and then went back down to Columbus and stayed in Columbus until he got a little bit older and he decided he wanted to come back up to Delaware. And then he opened that restaurant with 13 stools. maybe 9 stools. And then within 6 months, they added the dining room on.
Wow.
And then they added the other side where the smorgasbord was within the year. And it was there for from '68, and Mom closed it down in 1979. Dad died in 1976.
A lot of good memories there. And now let me ask anybody, does anybody know what the name, he talked about at the hotel, is where there was in the city of Delaware, is where he managed a restaurant for a while. Anybody know the name of that?
Fort Delaware.
The Fort Delaware Hotel was the name of the hotel. It had a dining room, though, by a certain name.
Starlight.
The Starlight Room, yes, the Starlight Room. And we have a menu back there, Mike, from the Starlight Room, back on that table. But your dad put in a lot of hours. People who work restaurants oftentimes work long hours. Your dad would get up at like what?
Well, when he was working in Columbus, it was a little bit better working in Delaware, but he would get up at about 3:30 in the morning.
Wow, and get home late.
Late.
Yes.
Yeah. And then he also opened Shade's Other Place,
Right.
which was right in the basement of at Central Avenue, and that was open until it was open only a very short time because they caught fire. And it burned to the ground and
Mike, was that by the telephone company there?
Yeah, right by the
Okay,
telephone
down underneath there.
Shade's Other Place and
Tom off in 1970 when they had the riots down at OU. I dropped him off when they closed the school.
Oh,
Yeah.
Tom,
Roger.
Mike, was there any family connection between your family running Shades and the Shades Restaurant down in what, Lancaster?
Canal Winchester?
Canal Winchester.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe way back, but you know, I have no idea. We've never made the connection, but I can tell you that the Shade family, I'm thinking that there's probably some relationship because the Shade family came out of Baltimore. And so it was Baltimore, Ohio, and there were a lot of family members down there, and Lancaster.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you being here. We were discussing restaurants in the south part of the city of Delaware here before the program. And, you know, oftentimes African Americans were not allowed to go to restaurants and other establishments back in the day, back in the 30s, the 40s, even into the very early 50s. A couple of the restaurants down there, though, can anybody name me a restaurant that was in the south part of the city of Delaware?
Liberty Club.
Liberty Club, they had a restaurant, yes? Yes. There was one that went early on that you mentioned was Crawford's? Crawford's, which was, you know, there's a walking path across there now on South Sandusky Street near Woodward School. And on one side of that, which used to be railroad tracks, was the Liberty Club, and on the other side was Crawford's, am I correct?
That's right.
And then there was, what was the other one you mentioned on, was it London Road?
Well, Crawford's later became the Driftwood. But on London Road there was, I think it was T&N.
T&N.
As maybe a family member of Henry Banks who had the store there.
Okay, at the same location where the store is now?
Yes.
T&N?
Yes.
Henry Banks' family, or they knew that they had that restaurant there at that location. Another one across the catty corner from that would have been one called Schlabach's. It was a truck stop on the corner of Liberty Road and London Road. Schlabach, I'm sorry, Schlabach. Sorry, that's right, it is Schlabach. Yes, of course, Schlabach. Yes. And of course, when you think about restaurants like that, before freeways, before the interstates, US Route 42, coming into Ashley, you had a truck stops and restaurants right along the main route there. And then as they came into Delaware, and then as they headed out of Delaware, the route taking London Road, That would have been a very busy place for trucks and traffic traveling through at that location. But let's see here.
Okay,
Today-
let's say,
Sure.
also, I think that, you mentioned that we weren't allowed to go in some of the restaurants, but I do remember my mother telling me about the Driftwood, Crawford's. Those were social places for them.
Oh, yeah.
They danced, they had a good time. It was more than a restaurant.
Yeah.
It was a gathering place, so in a good way, they all came together.
That held the community together.
That's right,
That's
that's right.
important places.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's see here. We're still back at Dearling. The restaurant at 12 West William Street is today called 12 West in the city of Delaware. In its history, it has gone by many names. In fact, I think it's 18 different restaurant names. Name me a couple of those, if you could. Eileen's, yes.
Pizza Villa.
Pizza Villa was one of them, yes.
Oleno.
Oleno is correct, yes. I'm going to read the list. Yes, back there.
Wasn't it called Stop 12?
Yes. Stop 12, yes. I think I have the sheet right here. Okay. It started out, the earliest we could find was the Schlitz Cafe in 1905. Then Clay and Garland Cafe, then it went by 3 other businesses that were not restaurants. Ben's Lunch, Oleno, Baxter's. We have a Baxter here tonight. Step up here for a moment. Oh, I think I need to ask you questions. You don't know any of the answers? That's for you or younger. Now your older brother, my age, Bruce would have known more. And we did a tape there a while back called Downtown on a Friday Night. And it included a whole section on restaurants. And your mother has passed away. We put her on tape along with Eileen. And they talked about that restaurant there. So we'll pass with you then. We're going to say you're just too young for this. There was also Brady's, the Snack Shack, the Stop 12, High Noon, Golden Lantern, Annie's 2, Deluxe Cafe, Pizza Villa, William Street Cafe, Gula's Hot Dogs. I don't remember the Mexican restaurant that was there. More recently. Fiesta, okay. And then, of course, today, 12 West. Well, Swep's Restaurant was located at several locations. This picture here shows it at 18 North Sandusky Street in the 1920s. Picture shows it across from the campus. This picture shows it across from the campus on South Sandusky Street. But we also, many of us remember that it was on East Winter Street in the city of Delaware, right? Right. And what was his first name?
Bus.
Bus. At least that's what we all knew him by, was Bus. Yes. This one was located right by the Columbus Zoo, but still in Delaware County. It's not standing any longer. What was the name of it? The Wyandotte Inn, right. The Wyandotte Inn. We'd like to find somebody who was associated with them. Yes?
We have a file of Parlors Historical Society from, yes, the son of the father who wrote that, and well, the grandfather.
Okay, so the Powell Historical Society has some information about it and pictures maybe even too? Mm-hmm. Great. 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 Many of us remember the Nectar Candy Store in the city of Delaware. The Historical Society has most of its contents, including that very familiar neon sign Nectar. We have that in good care right now in our Historical Society. But how many of you remember that it opened not as a candy store, but as a restaurant? And its main business was a restaurant. And the Roxy, yes, and it was the Roxy. And which also had one counter inside, though, that sold candy. Then later, the restaurant went out and it became all candy. But it started as a, in fact, do we have a picture of the Nectar here? Lost it there for a minute. We'll go on and come back to that. Delaware Milk Company was on Union Street. Who remembers the Superior Dairy? Do you remember that one? It's over on Union Street. Is Dottie here tonight?
She's here.
Come on down. We need to talk to you. Oh, I'm sure you have some information. Superior was a dairy, and it was also an ice cream store, wasn't it?
That's all it was.
Just ice cream.
Ice cream.
Now, tell them the story that you told me about how old you were when you worked there and what happened.
Well, I went to work when I was 14, Saturdays and Sundays, and I was 15, and Bowen, you mentioned him.
Stubby Bowen?
Stubby, his grandmother was the manager of that Superior.
Okay.
So she would go home in the afternoon, and at night when we closed up, I would put all the money in a little bag and walk up to the main store on Union Street. After dark, all alone.
Wow.
No help.
Wow. Huh.
Now see, if Gary Tagg was that age, he could have helped me.
I'll be going the other way.
Now, isn't it true though that you also got fired? Or not fired, but told to quit?
Almost arrested.
Should we ask what she was doing?
You weren't allowed to work when you were 14 and 15. And the state, I don't know what you call her, she had a blue hat and a blue uniform. And she came in the creamery and she said, go home. And Bowen's grandmother at the time was the manager, and I looked at her and she said, Dottie, put on your coat, go down the alley, buy City Ice and Fuel. When this lady's gone, come back.
And there you go.
But then I was 16, I did get a proper work permit.
Can you name any other employees that were there?
Well, that Joe Mays and Ruth Ann Lloyd that lived across the street. Her dad was into car radios. If anybody remembers Lloyd.
Guy?
No.
Guy Lloyd.
Guy Lloyd. This guy was one of my customers.
I'm fired up. This is good.
Okay.
See, this was back in 42 and 43. He went to Radnor High School, and he and all his buddies would come to Superior for ice cream.
Okay.
So I run into him yesterday, and I said, I know you. And he said, I don't know you. And I told him to come because you were going to talk tonight. And then he said, I can't come. I get a hold of you, and you said, I'll get him there.
There we go. There we
There you
go.
are, Dick.
Dick Coonfair.
Good to see you.
Yeah. Thank you, Bonnie. The Ostrander Restaurant is a long-time restaurant in what village? Not Sunbury. It is Ostrander, yes. See, when I was teaching at school, we had no goody questions. And those were the easy ones. And so that you just had a no good goody. Going on, And that restaurant now is it Lev's Pizza? I think it's still open, and it's been there for a long time. We haven't been able to find an employee or a person to come there tonight, come here tonight, but we'll find them. The Brown Jug, 1970, 2008. Couple there of the Delaware Milk Company. But here's the Brown Jug. And you know who we have with us tonight. That star from the Brown Jug. Oh, we'll see about that. Ed Wolf, come on up. And Ed, you worked at the Brown Jug at that location there on West William Street long before it was a Brown Jug, right?
Yes, I started there when it was a people store. And I was 14 years old when I started, but they kept me within the hours. I could only work until 5 o'clock at night, and you couldn't work more than 8 hours a day. But successfully, I worked for them for 13 years while we moved around to the main street. And so when I bought the Jug, I knew the building. I knew it well.
You did indeed. Tell us some of your memories about the Jug.
Well, I used to go in the Jug.
But don't sing.
I used to spend many an hour there, and I sat at the bar one night, and the place was roaring, and they didn't have enough help. And Don Flaxinen, who was the present owner, I had talked to him earlier about the potential of whether he's interested in selling, and I couldn't get him to give me any answer. And here, it was alumni weekend. They only had 2 waiters and 2 bartenders were running out of beer, and he said, "Were you serious?" And I said, "Well, I told you I don't know how I'm going to get it done, but yeah, I'm serious." And he came around and he dropped the figure, and I said, "Well, I don't think that's out of line." And so we got together, and it took 90 days to end up within 1% of what he originally said, even though the negotiations got a little tough. And I was working in Columbus, and my brother John called, said, "What are you doing about the Jug?" And I said, "I haven't heard from him in weeks." "Well, the word's all over town that you signed papers." We haven't. But it did happen. My brother-in-law, Bill Stroud, and I took over in '77 and had 31 wonderful years. Although I say wonderful because I remember all the good people and the good times. I blot out those bad times of people you had to fire and the things you have to do to run a business and the hours you have to put in. But many a great day and a lot of wonderful memories.
Bill told me a story one time that just after you guys bought that, of course, you just said '77, the blizzard of '78, and the later program coming up, but I think he said you spent long hours in there.
Well, we were very lucky because, in truth, I got up and I closed up on Wednesday night, and I wake up to a phone call from Bill on Thursday morning and said, "Look out the window." And of course, the whole town was covered with ice and snow. And I said, "Oh, I'll walk over to your house and then we'll go on down to see what's going on." And so I go over, and he's stuck trying to get out of his drive, so we pushed him out of there and came down and went into the Jug, and of course there's no power, and so we decided we would close, and so we called the appropriate employees and said we're going to be closed, and ended up loading up his family and driving out to my brother John's, who lived in Western Woods and still had power. So now I'm stuck out there, even though I'd rather be down at the Jug. And by Thursday night, Friday morning, we opened up. We got a ride into town, and we opened up and did as much business from Friday, and everybody had to walk down. You couldn't drive, but we were really hopping. People were ready, and we were so fortunate that High Westland, Nichols Bakery out of Marion, was coming down to take care of Westland, and so we were able to get a load of baked goods so that we were able to run, and then Saturday was a rip roar. We did as much as we would do on a Friday. So when it's all said and done, we lost a Thursday, and there were many a business that lost 5, 6, 7 days where they couldn't, their customers couldn't get there. So it was quite a weekend, and we enjoyed every minute of it. And there again, we had help that got there somehow, and we just did what we had to do.
Great. May I ask you also, you brought tonight a couple things. You brought the lid from Derek.
Yep.
A cottage cheese lid there. And also, this jukebox. Speaking of jukeboxes, that's out of the Brown Jug, right?
That was on the wall of the jug. We had them in all the booths with a major unit, so they were all hooked into there. And we eventually dumped them out. We took them out and put the plaques over the area because, of course, all the wires and everything else had ruined the wall there. But the reason was that, of course, they would jam up, people would put money in, and then they didn't get their play, and you just couldn't get anybody to work on the fact that we had probably 15 of those units up and down the wall. So when they took those out, that was supposed to be in the trash, but we cabbaged onto a few. So great.
I just wanted to mention here tonight, too, before I forget it, that one of the people out here in this audience, birthday is tonight, Sue Heston.
No.
Sue Heston, long-time member of the Historical Society, and we're going to say that, Sue.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Sue. Happy birthday to you.
Once again, you didn't take that shit on the road. You did a lot of that in the restaurant.
I did. My record was 14 times one day.
Is of a place called Allen's. Anybody know where Allen's was located? 23 south of Delaware, yes. On Lewis Center Road, yes. And as I understand, they did a lot of dancing there, as well as, sure they had a jukebox. But the building is no longer standing. But it was quite a popular place for a long time. Harder's Cafeteria today is the DPS Antiques. And that's there across from, right across almost from the Hamburger Inn. Many of us remember the U.S. store, grocery store at that location also. On the back wall back here, we have a sign that says Reed's Original Space Burger. Now, after the Harder's Cafeteria went out, it was called Reed's. It was predominantly pancakes. But as you can guess, you get into that early to mid 1960s and the space race. And so, of course, they had to call it the Space Burger for 55 cents.
Why did they spell it?
Why did they spell it that? I don't think people back in those days really knew how to spell. I don't know what else to say. I don't know why they did that. But a good question, Caleb.
They just interchanged the E and the U.
The E and the U, there you go, yes. Yes. How many remember this place, the Surrey Lounge in the city of Delaware, across from the Strand? Any memory of the Surrey? Great steaks, okay. The naked lady over the bar. You didn't work there, did you? Oh, she tried to hurry you past it because they had a naked lady up there. Okay. And of course, there were the L&K and Isley's. Now here's a shot of the L&K here on the corner. And then across the street, over here, was Isley's. What was unusual about Isley's ice cream cones? Skyscraper-like, yes, Yes, came up to a point, didn't it? Yeah. Rainbow? Rainbow ice cream. French's Fine Foods. Well, that's our next picture there. Oh, here's one inside of the L&K. Oh, yes, it had jukebox. And you know, we were at the fair here 3 or 4 years ago on some subject. We had this picture, and this lady walks up and says, "That's me." I did not get her name. I wish I'd gotten her name. But, French's Fine Foods. Well, we remember it as a bus station in the city of Delaware. They're on the corner of Spring Street. So it was quite a busy place because the Greyhound bus station was there. I don't know if it was open 24 hours or not, but was it 24 hours? Our next one, I don't know if it's I think that we more sharing. In other words, we're done with the photos. But I will mention this one though. Here's one. Where was the Golden Kettle?
Out of
37, 36. You had the lighthouse there that had been there before the freeway, I think. And then the Golden Kettle became the first restaurant out at the freeway on 36, 37 there at 71. My last one, name the 3 Happy Days style drive-ins on South Sandusky Street in the city of Delaware. Rips was the one, yes, and Mike earlier had mentioned that.
I remember Rip because we bought his house on Oak Hill.
Okay, you bought Rip's house on Oak Hill.
And they moved across the street to get a bigger house.
Okay, wow, yeah.
And I have a picture, I have a postcard of the house that we owned at 120 Oak Hill.
Wow. Wow, great.
In fact, I actually have 3 of them.
Okay, great memory.
And it was a Sears home, by the way.
It was a Sears home.
It was a Sears home, and there's 2 of them in Delaware.
Wow.
Mr. Graham's house, just almost opposite on West William.
Okay.
That bungalow there.
Yes, on West William Street there was a Sears home, and then the other one.
And then 120 Oak Hill.
Interesting. Wow. Well, I just heard the A&W. And Frisch's. We have a menu back there from Frisch's there at the back. Do we have any employees of Frisch's here? No? Nobody here from Frisch's tonight. But I do know that we have a few here from the A&W Root Beer Stand. Come on down, folks. All you car hops, roller skate up here. And if you worked inside, I know Brent's here. Come on up. Everybody come up here. I want to hear about the A&W.
Come on, guys. Go.
Yes, of course. Diane Saunders, where are you? Diane?
Oh,
Okay.
and Mike.
You have to get a roller skates on. As I understand it, of this group, only one person. Well, where's Connie? Connie, come on here. You are because, as I understand it, Connie is the only one of this group who actually, at least for a while, wore the roller skates. Am I correct? Isn't that what you told me? One Sunday and that was it?
One Sunday.
Wow.
And at the A&W?
But they ain't done it?
It was gravel.
Frisch's.
Oh,
Oh,
Frisch's.
you were
Oh,
Frisch's?
she was
You worked at Frisch's?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, because A&W, we never wore roller skates.
Ever? They didn't try it for a
Did
summer
they ever wear
in
roller
60
skates?
I never.
A summer in 68.
Liability.
I'm the closest thing to escape there.
Yeah, he killed
Okay, maybe it was Christian.
Thought you was on
Yeah, you thought you was slick.
Where
It's
did
pretty
Bill work?
slippery.
Did she work at the A&W or did she work at Frisch's?
That was too long ago and I don't remember.
I was a pizza girl. Pizza girl.
We didn't wear
The short amount of time that I worked at one of the drive-ins, they did try to put us on roller skates. Most of the girls didn't, or couldn't, and weren't successul.
Working life was too horrible.
And I suppose it could have been
Liability alone
Heck,
would
it
kill
could have
you.
been Lynx, but no, it was bigger than Lynx. But I just remember that Gail, my older sister, was working there.
They had help.
They were short help
They
on
hired
Sundays,
Carlos
so
to
I think it
be
was,
a cop.
and she asked me to come
They
down on
called it two
Sundays
little
to
cars.
help. And that was the time they were initiating the roller skates, but I don't think they lasted long, because I know I tried them on for like 10 minutes and there's no way I could carry food and roller skates. So, it didn't work for me, but.
Right on down this road, and we also had Linda Walters, Linda Mays. She couldn't make it because she got the flu last night, so she wanted to be here to join this group. And so let's go right down this line here. And any memories, or when did you work there, or who do you remember there?
1964, I think, the summer, one season, and it was the cruise place. Everybody came down Sandusky Street and cruised through the A&W until the manager would run them off because they'd been through too many times.
They put in speed bumps eventually, didn't they?
Yes.
Probably the vivid memory I have of that particular time. I don't remember.
I think, okay. Well, here, I'll hold it. You almost have to eat it in order to be
Hey, Brent, we
able
need
to
to know
eat
their
it.
names. Who are
Yeah, we need names here.
So,
Okay.
I worked with this gal here. You would make it work.
How does it work?
It's
Is it on there?
It's on, you just have to put it right to your mouth, right to your mouth.
Okay.
Okay, but the most vivid memory I have of that, okay, it's working now, thank you. It was one time Mr. Miller called me into his office and he said, "Miss Price, you need to come to my office right now." And I said, oh my gosh, what have I done? I was working so diligently and I did a really good job. And so anyhow, I went into his office and I don't know if you knew him or not, but he would get very red very quickly. And he would say it, and he put his head in his hands and he says, "You're gonna make me lose my franchise. You're gonna make me lose my franchise." And we had these little costumes, I guess you would call them, that we had to wear. And we had a little apron and a belt and a vest. And I hadn't worn my vest that day. And he was very, very upset. So, but I heard he had other problems.
I just remember having a lot of fun. All the kids would come in at night, and you didn't feel like you were working because you saw everybody. You didn't miss anybody.
You worked for
Huh? Go ahead.
You weren't working.
But yeah, you really weren't working because you would stop the cars and visit with everybody and saw everybody but it was the best time of my life. I had a good time working at the A&W.
Hello, my name's Brent Skates. I started to work for Carl Daly, was the owner before Jim Miller. I started working for him at 59, dipping onion rings, going door to door, hanging menus on people's doorknobs, and odds and ends. Didn't go out and work the Fountain Inn when I was 14 up until 65. At one time, a family of 7 of us, Paul worked there one evening. I had 2 sisters who were car hopping, a sister and my mother worked the grill. My stepfather toasted buns and gathered trays out of the parking lot. As a side note, my brother quit to go work for Burger Chef. And Jim Miller said Burger Chef will never make it. Nobody's going to get out of their car and walk up to a window.
But the only thing I remember is just how busy they'd get in the, when they had the lunch hours and lunch, especially lunchtime, when all the factories would have their lunch, and a lot of people would come there to eat. And, it was just a crazy time, I'll tell you that.
My name's Dennis Kelly. I worked there in 1966. That was probably the most fun I ever had at work. It was a very nice place to work. They were all very nice people. And Brent pretty much was the boss.
Mr. Miller was a good guy to work for too.
He was right here, man.
Now, we didn't get your name, Mike.
Oh, Mike DeNova.
Okay. Brent, we got?
Diane Saunders, DeNova.
Okay.
Nancy
Nancy Fleming.
Susie Marsden Huff.
And so you all had a great time working there.
Yeah.
I heard the story, though, Brent, about the time Mr. Miller sent you out to the parking lot to pick up trash. And that you did, and your head got in the way of something, didn't it? When you reached down to, I think I have the right person, reached down to pick up the trays. Remember, the trays were on the window.
Yeah.
And you came up under a tray?
Could have.
Probably not been senseless at the time. And as I understand it, came up hard and everything went in over to the people in the car. But Mr. Miller forgave you and he ended up paying the dry cleaning, as I understand, for them. And
I don't recall, but it's very possible.
Okay.
He was a nice guy.
Yes. And he's still living in Florida, is he? Is he not?
Mr. Miller.
I believe. I'm sorry?
He's in Florida?
I think so. I think that's where he lives now. But do we have any other memories that you would like to share? Or maybe of a restaurant that I didn't mention tonight. Yes, back there.
On William Street, when I came to town, there was a place called Bordenburger.
Bordenburger, yes. And today that is?
Tim Hortons.
That's Tim Hortons. Yes, it's gone by more than one name. The Gathering Inn, yes. And where was the Gathering Inn? Where the Campbell House was, which is today Love and Carol's. The halfway house. The halfway house, yes. Down on 23. We were looking for somebody who had worked there or a long-time customer. We didn't find anybody yet, so. Lake's Dairy Cream on South Sandusky Street across. Do we have an employee from there?
From Halfway House?
You both work at Lake's? Step right up here just for a minute. There was across from the cemetery there. Eventually, you know, the last business there was the veterinary service there. But, so when did you work at Lake's?
It was around 67. Lakes are unrelated to Lakes. I was still Barnhart. And I started working there and then I got hurt.
Great. And your name is?
It was Nancy Gay, Nancy Bell now. I called Jill one Sunday, well, it was Easter Sunday, to see if she wanted to do something. She had to work, so she said, let me call Bill and see if he can come and work with me. So he said okay, and at the end of the day, he offered me a job. I met my husband there too.
Wow. Great. Nancy, you work at Lake's also?
Yes.
My word.
That's how I got my job up here.
Now, was Lake's called Dairy Cream at one time? Okay.
The way I remember.
And then there was Judy's.
Yeah.
Remember Judy's? Well, it was earlier on Dairy Delish up on North Sandusky. And then today, Dairy Depot is called. Dairy Delight? Dairy Delight. Maybe rather than Dairy Delish. Dairy Delight. Right, okay, yes. Any other memories you'd like to share? Benny?
I don't have a memory. I just wanted to let people know from A&W that if everything works out all right, I found a man that actually took the A&W sign and he has it, and I think we're going to get it for the fair.
Great.
The original sign.
Great, great. Sheldon?
Yeah, we're short.
I'm sorry? Log cabin on 23 North. You did? Oh, my God. Arthur Ford played at the Los Angeles? Wow. Wow, they had an Oregon game. Wow. Yes, Jimmy.
When was your turn? Stuck out of that. I was too young.
Miller's Restaurant on North Sandusky Street in the 1940s. Wow.
The colonial kitchen.
They went out west and opened the restaurant. Now, was that on the east side or the west side of the street? On the west side of the street.
Was that where,
Okay, Kenzie, 2 or 3 doors north of that. Okay.
patios was in there too?
Yes.
Wasn't
The best patios in the world. Hamburger Inn.
The best thing in the world, the Hamburger Inn. Yes.
That was clean. It was clean.
We did.
There was a lunchbox in that area.
Lunchbox Restaurant, right? And I think that
across the
maybe
street
they
from the
came over.
Hamburger Inn. And you had Angus Restaurant on South Sandusky.
I'm sorry?
And Angus Restaurant on South
And
Sandusky.
Angus on South Sandusky Street. Yes.
Mark Hartsaw.
Mark Hartsaw.
Shad Hartsaw was the baker.
Yes, for years.
Shad Hartsaw.
Yeah.
Say that again, please.
Is it coming
Through? There you go, a little close.
This is my cousin, Tom Amato. Our grandfather baked at the hamburger.
Wow.
We need name tags.
What was his nickname?
I recognize faces.
It was Shad.
Chad. Socks.
What?
Socks?
Socks.
He was a good poker player.
Wow.
But I was in town and I'm glad to see what you guys are doing. I'm living in San Diego.
Wow.
But it's a great opportunity to come and listen to everybody talk about
Great to have you here. To take time out of
Susie and my sister worked at the A&W, I think, together, or no? Vicky? Yeah. Vicky Carmichael now.
Vicky Carmichael, yes.
She wanted to be here tonight, but she was very interesting.
Great. I'm sure glad you agreed to come, out of your trip back to Ohio. Thank you very much, yeah. I used to hear one of the stories that I heard from people from the Hamburger Inn. This Hudson once told me, he said, restaurants used to share items. If Swopes didn't have something, or they were running out, they'd run down to the Hamburger Inn and say, we need so many potatoes or something. And they shared back and forth a lot on that, I understand, in many restaurants. And grocery stores did that also. Yes, back in the back. And BUN'S did that, yes. Yes. Did I miss one? Yes.
I just wanted to comment, I don't know where this came from, but we used to say, I dreamed that I had died and gone to heaven, and when I woke up, I found I was at Rip's Drive-In.
I dreamed and wished that I had gone to heaven, but when I woke up, I found out I was at Rip's Drive-In. Where'd you hear that, Jim?
Have no idea.
Wow. At the Yankees, you had the best fish, you say? They had good fish. Wow.
The Hamburger Inn.
Colonial Kitchen, yeah.
Hey, Brent, the Hamburger Inn used to say that that's back before they expanded. They would seat 10,000 people, 10 at a time.
Okay. Yeah. 10 stools, yes. What about Powell? What was a restaurant in Powell?
I know.
We really haven't had very many restaurants at all in town. We had Plumbers, Five and Dime, that sold ice cream for a while. That was back in the 50s. And of course, at a couple of our markets, you could go in and get ice cream or popsicles and that kind of thing, but we did not have restaurants. Wyandotte Inn, like you're talking about near the zoo, was probably the closest one to have, other than going to Delaware or Worcester.
Thank you. You know, right across the street over here is Mrs. Seeley. And Mrs. Seeley isn't here this evening, but she's speaking of buying ice cream at a place. Right across the way was where they have a gas station, and you could buy ice cream. Right.
Gas station, ice cream, and they had 4 or 5 cabins behind it.
Okay. So they had gasoline, ice cream, and 4 or 5 cabins that you could rent out back behind. Mrs. Seeley said that when she turned 16, he gave her a gift of 16 dips. And she said, and I ate every one. Brent.
My mother worked at a lot of different restaurants early on, and a couple of them I barely remember. One was on West William Street. It would be above Blue Limestone Park, just by the railroad tracks.
You're probably talking to Midway, wouldn't you be?
Jerry, what about Jerry Hamilton's barbecue place? It was out there.
Well, there's a house there now.
Okay.
I don't remember the buildings that much, but then there was another one on Lake Street.
On Lake Street.
There was a marathon station and a restaurant right next door to it. There were metal buildings primarily with glass. The slab is still there for that restaurant last time I looked.
Wow. Interesting.
Right in the Bargill's Park.
Right there by the bargels, by that where the gas station was. Interesting. Have we done it?
Anybody remember Best
Someone's gonna get it.
Oh, yeah.
What was the street, Gruber? Gruber, I think. Oh, they had the best baked goods. Oh.
Best baker? Okay,
My dad worked there.
Did he? Wow. Wow. Jack.
There was the Central Restaurant in North Augusta, that is Steve Politas.
Steve Politas, so the Central Restaurant, yes. Yeah. Well, we assumed. Leonard Keys. We know he worked the OK, didn't he?
Worked at Swopes. Worked at Swopes.
And then Swopes. Yeah. I'm sorry? Norton? Yes, you worked there, you say? Okay. We've covered a lot of territory tonight. And, yes.
Colonial Kitchen.
Colonial Kitchen, someone I think did mention that, yeah. Out on West Central. G&R Grill. Now, it's just across the border, but we all gone there, so we'll claim it anyway. Yes, indeed. Heinemann Bakery, yes, on Winter Street.
What was the chicken place by the state park?
The chicken place up by the state park, that was Parlors. And then John Young. The chicken coop, wasn't it? No, it was. Chicken house. Yeah. Roasted chicken. Wow. How about the Crackpot Restaurant? You ever heard of the Crackpot Restaurant? Well, now I've been told that it was where Ritz is now. That it preceded Ritz, the Crackpot Restaurant. Oh my, we've covered a lot of territory.
The Delaware County Historical Society is supported by dues, grants, donations, and volunteers. We welcome your help with any of our worthwhile projects.